Models, Episode 59, Forever Dis, with guest Lauren Boyle. Hosted by Carly Busta, Daniel Keller, and Lil Internet.
Dis is a collaborative project started in the late aughts by a group of friends who, seeing the limits of legacy media and 20th century conventions of cultural discourse, started experimenting with other forms of media, distribution, and overall disposition. In 2010, Dis launched a digital-first magazine with Nick Scholl, Patrick Sandberg, and Adrian Massey, with which listeners of New Models are very likely already familiar. For those who aren't, Dis Magazine was a media outlet that took up the emergent cultural logic of Web 2 platforms and the sketchy promises of post-financial crash globalism and pushed it until the seams started to show. Dis has been and continues to be a big inspiration for New Models, and we're certainly not alone in that sentiment. Name any number of art, tech, fashion-adjacent projects that have held pop cultural attention over the past decade, and it's very likely Dis is in their DNA. Telfar, Luar, Hood by Air, Vaquera, Arca, Miss Claire Sullivan's Couture, half the staff of V-Files Interview, V-Man, CR Fashion Book, the recent creative direction around Casey Cadwallader's Mugler, and many, many more. In 2016, Dis curated the 9th Berlin Biennale, and in 2010, curated the 10th Moving Image Biennale in Geneva. The Dis project has been carried over the past decade and a half or so by 4 central members: Lauren Boyle, Solomon Chase, Marco Roso, and David Toro. Among their most recent productions is the 2021 film Everything But the World, which had its Berlin premiere at the Schinkel Pavillon. We are totally thrilled that Dis's Lauren Boyle was able to make time to come by the New Models studio today for a conversation we've wanted to have since New Models' conception. So, Lauren, thank you so much for being here and welcome to New Models.
Thank you for having me, Carly. And Julian and Dan, I'm really, really thrilled to be here. I love your podcast. I listen to it religiously.
It's very sweet. I mean, for real, when we were first thinking about leaving our legacy media and art situations and starting something, the fact that Dis had done this 10 years earlier was a huge inspiration. And I think Joshua Citarella and others who've entered this post-Web 2 media creative economy would say the same.
Absolutely.
Right? So We have Dan joining us remotely from California.
Hello.
And Julian's in the studio too. Cool.
Yes.
So I was thinking, I mean, there's so many ways we could start off. I mean, I would love to at some point get into a little bit of the lore of Dis as well. But one question, I mean, so last night there was this great opening at Schinkel, and maybe we should just start with that. Like, you were last here in 2016 when you put on this incredible and hotly contested biennial.
I think you could really fairly say we ran away from Berlin.
Oh, God.
Like we have not been back.
Chased out.
We were chased out of Berlin.
Chased out.
You kind of were.
Seriously.
Yeah.
And I think the problem was that there was this perception that was mainly made by like 1 or 2 articles, but like the hate flows so much faster and farther than anything positive. Yeah. So it just created this like mask over something that was incredible and beautiful and like, it was really awesome.
Biennial ever.
I mean,
it was one of the only ones that I like made any impact on me at all. Obviously it's because, I was involved in some way or another, but it's kind of just was very much the wrong place at the wrong, it was the right place at the right time to make a maximum impact. But as far as the backlash, it was just really the height of that kind of moment where wild accusations flowed very freely and there wasn't much skepticism of the apparatus that did that.
Well, thanks for saying that.
I mean, you hit a chord for sure.
I mean, we were like disassociating. We're like, what's happening? Like, so last night coming back for the first time in 7 years, it was amazing, actually. It was like ripping off a Band-Aid or something. Like, it felt like that. Like, okay, like, this is fine. We can come back to Berlin. We can like come back and like not be like terrified.
To paint a picture of the opening last night at Schinkel, there was a line out every door.
Yeah.
I mean, what I loved was there were a lot of faces I actually hadn't seen before, and people really turned up. Like, at a time when a lot of the art world has like lost its luster, people really came out for this. And it wasn't just like your home team. It was like whoever was in Berlin from that home team, plus a whole other generation of people.
Yeah.
But Gen X was conspicuously absent, which was interesting.
It was interesting.
So a question that Julian had, which maybe is a nice way to frame this conversation, is Dis is neither cynical, nor sarcastic, nor self-serious. Mm-hmm. So what is it? What words would you ascribe?
Oh my gosh. Okay, for the longest time, people called us ironic, which was the most annoying thing. And I was just like, well, you really didn't get it.
Yeah.
You know, it's fine. One of the big things for us is like, we are collaborative.
Yeah.
And we collaborate beyond even like the caretakers of DIS, like the primary caretakers, like very much about like co-creation.
Right.
So I don't know, in that way, I think there's some idealism involved in choosing every day to work in a structure like this.
Because it's
Does that make
really,
sense?
yeah, it does. It's really not about individual personas. Like,
No.
they're really erased. I mean, it's
Yeah.
like that Bernadette Corporation film,
Yeah.
Get Rid of Yourself, was taken to
Yeah.
heart. The individual subjectivity that powered Web 2 has been evacuated.
Yeah.
Or it's like you were Dark Forest before Dark Forest was coined as Dark Forest.
And, you know, it's funny because it's like I keep seeing these things about like, oh, like we are living in like a culture with no alternative or no subcultures and things like that. And I'm like, that was like exactly the point we were making.
Right.
In 2010.
Yeah.
I guess every generation feels exactly like that, right? Like we're still talking about the same things probably as 50 years ago or 100 years ago.
I think every generation feels the same way, but it was exceptionally
mean.
true because of technological shifts that happened around 2010. And, you know, all of Paul Scholas's stuck culture, whatever, Lindy Man theories, I think are especially true. There's even a Twitter account that I follow that's like pop culture died in 2009, because that was sort of the last remnants of the monoculture. And if you think about people who are still big celebrities today, generally they were famous before 2010. And that's sort of the cutoff date.
Wow.
So I do think there's definitely something to be said about the tropes that DIS explored being replicated over and over again, because it kind of was like the last innovative thing. I always think of like DIS and like Skrillex as the last new cultural forms.
Yeah.
Maybe that's not true. Maybe I'm very much exposing my millennial self, but I do kind of see a lot of things still just, you know, reverberating from 2010, 2011.
Yeah.
Can you actually take us back to that moment when you first started having conversations about starting DIS? And
First of all, in no world did we ever think we would still be doing this today. There was just like, that was not even, you know, I mean, we could have just been doing it for 3 months. Like,
Right.
It was not, there was no premeditation on our part when we set out to do something. And I think that's like important.
yeah, I
to
agree.
note.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was crazy. It was like, okay, so there's Purple
Right.
and there's Vice.
Yeah.
And like you go to their websites and all you get is like an email someone for like advertising in print. You know
Or
what I
you
mean?
get,
Like
like,
it was like
horny old photographers.
yeah,
like,
but there wasn't even like, it was maybe a blog, but like not even a blog. And it was just sort of
Right.
like, everyone was just sort of like denying the internet existed
Yeah.
entirely. And then Tumblr was like big at that moment for sure. Or it was starting to get
Yeah.
big, I should say. But it was like pre-Instagram.
yeah.
You know, so media-wise, I mean, it was a legacy media print world, but totally self-serving.
Yeah.
And regurgitating the same things that had been forever. And, you know, we just basically were like, we have so many friends who aren't getting seen.
Yeah.
And we want to make like things that actually made sense like for online.
Yeah.
I don't know. Does that make sense? Like, I mean, the whole thing was like this like WordPress that Nick Scholl built us, and like every single thing was like custom coded. You know?
wow, right.
Like, so like the whole thing's, I mean, it's like, don't go to dismagazine.com. Oh my God. Good luck finding an article that works. Like, I mean, it is
No,
like
we're actually
falling
in crisis.
apart.
Like,
It's
there has to be
it's
some
a
way to like
crisis.
preserve
Yes.
this.
Yeah, but even back then, I mean, it would like crash your computer because
Yeah.
it was like, if you had like an old computer, it would like crash it because it was so densely like every page was like different.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean.
So this is like 2008?
No, I mean, it was 2009. We started
okay.
talking about doing a magazine, and then I think we launched in like in spring 2010.
This is like Ghetto Gothic was starting then, and there was also
Almost.
a feeling about
Yeah.
like the music industry
Yeah.
also not working. There was like
Yeah.
a general, there was like
Generally, and fashion sucks.
Fashion sucked.
Fashion sucks so bad, and we were just like, we were way more interested in what was happening at Burlington Coat Factory, like far more interested. We spent so much time on 6th Avenue. It's like.
Maybe to say what Burlington Coat Factory is for European listeners, or I don't even know, does it still exist anymore? I don't even know.
I don't know.
It's kind of like a TJ
There's
Maxx.
definitely like a flagship in New York.
6th Avenue across from the now failing Bed Bath & Beyond.
Yeah, Bed Bath & Beyond. We just like would go up and down the strip and buy and return. And because like no like PR girl worth her salt would give us anything, you know, we would just be like doing buys and returns to do fashion shoots, like with like towels from Bed Bath & Beyond. And like, it was just like very, very playful and
Yeah.
like in our apartments and just a big group of friends.
Right. I mean, so Maybe you want to say this, Julian. You had a really interesting way of talking about dis is gaze. And we were talking about how like now it seems like a lot of people, even legacy media, they're in the online, speaking from the online to the online. But there's something quite different about that dis structure. Do you want to say it?
I mean, I think maybe if you put into a question, you can say it. But
Okay. Maybe you'll extrapolate if I don't get
Sure.
it right. Okay. It seems like today, so much of what we consume online comes from an extremely online place, as if internet dwellers speaking to the internet. But with dis, we have this feeling as if it's a network of friends in an analog space speaking to other people about how online culture is changing our human experience of everyday life. This was true in 2010 and has remained true through to the present. Dis never feels thirsty or resentful. It's at once open to the internet and resilient to the internet's physics. What do you think has made that possible? And if, to your mind, is that analysis even right? And then what are the principles by which dis has evolved? So kind of a multi-part question. Like one, is that positioning right? Or
I've never heard that said before, but I think that's pretty true. I feel like we haven't been coerced into certain trappings of the internet through the years in a
How?
way. I mean, this is really lame, but like I feel like it's because we are these like mostly geriatric millennials.
Okay.
Do you know what I
Here
mean?
too.
Like we're like on that cusp where it's like we did grow up like watching like reality bites, like being like the man, like you know, like hate, like you know, like whatever. Like we had this other approach, whereas like the younger generation, they maybe didn't idolize Gen X in the way that we might have, or like you know, like does that make sense?
yeah,
And
definitely.
so we weren't able to like exactly transition into like a super thirsty like selfie world. Like that's not actually in us, and we're happy to talk about it, but we don't come from that.
totally can
We
relate
didn't grow
to that.
up in that environment, and even just like coming together, like it was like a true community coming together, like physically first, and then networked.
Right. And I feel like dis and like the party scene at that time that was also emerging. Right?
Oh,
there was just like
absolutely.
so much
Yeah.
IRL contact.
I always think about it, even looking at the credits of Everything But the World. Is that an Everything But the Girl pun?
Yeah.
It is. That's great. You're revealing your elder millennial status there. But I mean, even looking at the credits for that film and then BB9, it was such high quality work, but created with so many people involved, which is such a quote unquote problem that like the internet for the past like 2 or 3 years has been scrambling, trying to like autistically formalize rules of like working as a community in DAOs or whatever else. And yet you were able to just pull off this group creation really, really effectively. And I wonder, what's the secret?
Saying yes, you know, a lot. Just let's do it. Like you don't overthink it. I think that's the secret.
And just see what happens.
Kind of. We're not the most precious people. Like
Yeah.
just do it and put it out there and see what happens. Move on. Next thing.
I mean,
you know?
that's a really
Like,
interesting counter distinction to Gen X, where like having worked in Gen X run legacy media, there was such a feeling of this has to be perfect and it cannot be released. The idea of releasing something. But like this comes from this leaky space. Like stuff is going to leak. It's going to drip. It's going to become fog. And there's a million other pieces of content behind this. So don't
and
be
it's
precious.
not that important.
Right.
You know, I mean, you know, it's just like more important that like you don't stop yourself from doing something that you're feeling at the time. I mean, I'm sure we made mistakes or this or that, but like I really can't even think of anything I regret. It's like whatever.
Yeah.
It's like,
No, I mean, if I think about just all the different media that I've produced with your help, it sounds so schizophrenic. It was like there's a spy hat, a DJ mix, a documentary film in Tahiti, a roast. So yes, it's a very much a yes and improv style of creating or something.
the spy hat.
I appreciate it.
Dan, do you want to say what
what
that
was the
is?
We have to talk about that. And do you still have one?
I have the prototype, yeah. Well, it didn't really ever work, but we tried to make a hat that was 5 eyes themed, and it had a spy camera in the center of it, which is something that I've always wanted. And actually, I still don't have a functional one. I still think there's a market for a cool spy hat.
Yeah, that's a one of one, Dan.
Yeah, there's one white one and one black one.
Yeah, one of I remember taking that to the embroiderer.
But are there never, I mean, what about when there's conflicts or somebody has an idea you don't like, or even writing the film with a writer's room? I mean, how do you cut everything down? Is there a sort of a editor-in-chief, so to speak?
No. honestly, it is quite democratic. Like, it is a bit of a majority rules, or who has the strongest opinion. None of us are like, we're not that headstrong. Like, we're kind of flexible people. So it's like,
It works.
it's
this
okay.
way.
It works. You know, and
Yeah.
of course there's conflicts and we have differences of opinion, but you learn to pick your battles.
Has anyone ever been kicked out of dis?
Never. Oh my gosh. No. If we could do anything, it's just like, how can we work with our friends?
Yeah,
That's the best thing.
that is the best thing. In some ways, coming of professional age when we did was a blessing and a curse. A curse in that everything imploded right when we needed to start getting salaried jobs or whatever to have adult lives. But like a blessing in that we had to like create the structures and we get to choose who we want to work with.
Yeah.
I mean, just coming back to BB9, I'm thinking about how the structure of it really reflected the structure of any digitally active media event. So nominally, it was the form of an art exhibition. But at the same time, it was this diagramming. You have the narrative, you have the content, in this case, the art, you have the affiliated names, the marketing materials, and then the audience remediation and feedback. And like every level of that, you were engaging in some way. And I'm so surprised that that wasn't evident to like, maybe we could take a moment and talk about the critical response to dis at that time. And like, there were so many different things that Biennale revealed. And I think for all present company and probably most of our listeners, it was this watershed moment to see the things we'd been thinking about reflected in this public space. But it hit a total wall of resistance among the like art establishment.
I'd also like to mention that the title of it was The Present in Drag,
So great.
acknowledging the performativity of everything, including the political in the social media era. And you got very performative criticism in response, which, I mean, you really saw the beginning of what was the Donald Trump era fantasy of like ubiquitous moral enforcing sadism and a sort of like autist authoritarian view of humans homogenized into distinct categories and rule sets of empathy. I'm very curious though of what you saw and felt when you read those negative reviews at the time. I don't know if Carly, that was also
Sure,
your...
yeah, great.
Well, I mean, some of them just were so, I don't even know how to explain it. I mean,
Some were just cruel.
Some of them just, they were, first of all, I want to misnomer that they were all bad. Just for the
that's true,
listeners.
that's true,
There were a
yeah,
lot of good
yeah,
reviews.
yeah.
That's not the problem. The issue is that, you know, the things that people get liked and shared are oftentimes the ones that are the most like, you know, people have always loved to hate dis.
Right.
That's
yeah,
not, that was
yeah.
just like, that was like a trope. It was
I
like,
mean,
it's a
your name
cliche.
almost
It's
like,
a cliche, you know? So it's like,
beat
okay.
it.
But when we would read these reviews and we'd be like, you really didn't get it. Like you were at the European School of Management and Technology, which is in the Heidegger building. And there's like literally like stained glass of like socialist themes. And there's just by the nature of the building, you've got the stock exchange also playing in front of it. You don't know why we chose this building. Like,
To install like a crypto installation.
yeah, to do a crypto installation. You're really, really going to like suppress all critical thinking in order to write this review and say that we're like this like pro-capitalist maniacal New Yorkers like that like only care about like aesthetics.
Yeah.
I don't know. It was just like, to me, it was stunning to see like the mediocrity of it all.
Yeah.
It wasn't surprising.
Yeah.
We weren't surprised. Like, because I mean, we were very intentionally putting the audience, the subject, into the exhibition in a way that made them feel compromised and
Yeah.
feel conflicted. Like maybe they had something to do with the world that we're in.
I mean, I thought
You
the
know?
irony of the negative reviews, they almost framed it as if you were making like a sarcastic and escapist world for the viewer to enter. But like what it made you feel was like actual reality, like what was going on in that moment. And the sort of revolutionary moralism of the reviews felt far more of an escape from what everyday reality is than anything that the Biennale presented.
That's exactly right. I mean, it's like, what world do you live in that you can like look down and be like,
Right.
no, not in an art exhibition. You can't do that
Right.
here. You know, like, okay.
I mean, but you wrote it into your press release. Like, I can't believe this is written in 2000. I mean, I can believe it was written in 2016. What I can't believe is that it's no less true in 2023, where you said there's nothing particularly realistic about the world today, a world in which investing in fiction is more profitable than betting on reality. So our proposition is simple. Instead of holding talks on anxiety, let's make people anxious. Rather than organizing symposia on privacy, let's jeopardize it. Let's give a body to the problems of the present, where they occur, so as to make them a matter of agency, not spectatorship. I mean, that's so clear. And so,
did they not read it? Did they not get the press release?
Also, as press releases go, it was like one of the most well copywritten, jargon-free. Like,
we're not pulling any punches. We're not pulling any punches. We'll tell you what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, I do think that this was the era where, like, previously post-internet art and a lot of this was, the strategy was over-identifying with the object of critique, exploding it and kind of exaggerating it and embodying it. And that whole tactic was under question then. And I kind of hope that that's over already, although maybe it's not within the art world. But I think that's why. It's like, it doesn't matter what the press release was. It was that tactic. They were actually hoping for art to be some type of reprieve from this new fascist world that we were entering in 2016.
Yeah.
Right, because Trump was fascism in drag, right? So it was like the problem was anything. Again, drag is the center of a big culture war.
Yeah.
So
Well, and it was just like, I think it was the moment when the people who called things neoliberal started calling things fascist. It was very much that
you're right.
transition. And
You're right.
Dis was on the forefront of that, always being accused of all those things, I guess, throughout. But
I'm surprised you didn't read the part where we were like clutching their tote bags. Like,
Oh, that was really great. That was really great.
That was after living in Berlin for 2 years.
I mean, that's real. One thing I did want to ask about was Dis's relationship to subculture. As Dan said, as you said, of course, pop culture ends at the end of the aughts, like it no longer becomes possible. And, you know, with the dissolution of legacy media, a mainstream, like a literal mainstream, is no longer possible because everything's, you know, decentralized. But so if there's no pop culture or there's no mainstream, can there even be subculture? That would be one argument. But yet Dis did give way to so many influential threads, which arguably are attached to different kinds of subcultures. Like, what does that term mean to you? What does it mean to you now? How do you conceive of what had been subculture in the past, but just feels like some other kind of alternative thread?
It's so hard now to use that word. That word feels like it's from another time.
Totally.
So there must be a new vocabulary. We need a new vocabulary for what happens now.
Core, I guess, but now we're post-core.
But that goes back to your like homometic thing. Like we're just sort of like spiraling into trend words.
Right,
And at that point it's an algorithm and the question becomes like, can a machine create a subculture? And like, maybe.
If a machine can send in for a whole demographic.
Exactly. Like then why not?
Yeah.
But when we started Dis, we were already feeling like there was no alternative, there was no outside. And it wasn't just because there was like Rihanna was like everywhere.
Right.
You know, it was also because we felt the pressure of capital everywhere.
Yeah.
There wasn't this ability to kind of like form things outside of it. I guess it really depends on how you define subculture, which I really can't define.
Yeah.
I mean, really don't.
I can't. I keep hitting this dead end where you can't have a subculture if you don't have a mainstream. It's a 20th century spatial construction. There has to be something else. I mean, I don't know, Julian or Dan, if you have thoughts on that. I mean, Julian, I know you've been thinking a lot about TikTokification of Berlin subcultures and like how Berghain has just become like a how-to TikTok vid.
They're just, I mean, essentially TikTok is just making what would be subcultures in the West operate like they've sort of always operated in Asia, where it's more of a costume or an aesthetic pack than
the Harajuku
lifestyle, pseudo-ideological commitment. I mean, the whole thing, though, that I always remind myself is that this idea of like, I don't know, subcultural authenticity and not being a poser, and like that only existed from like 1992 to maybe like 2004
like
or
the
something.
Strokes.
Like the only time in history, really, though. Because
you need like David Bowie or somebody.
Right,
like,
I mean, the Ramones were wearing like platforms and sequin dresses before they became a punk band, right? It's like everyone in the 70s, like this Cambrian explosion of subcultures was just scene jumping all the time. Like it was this very late subculture phenomenon, almost this fundamentalist grasp onto something that was slipping away because it was so rapidly commodified. So I think
I have to interject because I was curious about this, so I looked up the etymology, and poser, at least spelled in the French way, was entered English in 1869 as one who practices affected attitudes. And by the early 20th century, poser was widespread use to describe someone who pretended to be something they were not, especially someone who was superficial and trendy. So I guess this is actually hardcore all throughout the 20th century. And I think maybe we can talk about it finally being over now, but I don't actually, I think, yeah, I mean, clearly our childhood's poser was probably at its zenith as an insult, but yeah, it's more that it's finally ended. And this was actually something that was true for all of modernity, that this was something that people were not into.
Yeah, I guess the people who were calling the Ramones posers at CBGBs or whatever just kind of faded away into
They didn't go anywhere.
history.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're forgotten.
But actually, Dan, I wonder if you would even have a counter argument here, because when I think of something like Miladies, or I think of, like, for lack of a better word, subcultural energy that came up around the edges of crypto in the past year, what do you make of those kind of scenes, or like network spirituality, or like, these kinds of groups? Like
Subcultures now, if they exist, are extremely incoherent. Right, they're very hard to understand the language and the aesthetics. Like they
But that's
make
always
it.
been a strategy of subculture, right? To confuse, to mix the codes. Like think of punk. That's like mixing like a Jamaican culture with like glam culture.
Yeah, but still,
and,
there
like,
was a store.
I do feel like, I mean, and this is, again, we're all really showing our age, but I do feel like there is something about Zoomer culture that is specifically about maximizing incoherence.
Definitely.
And that being what you're trying to optimize for, which is inherently hard to dissect or understand or analyze. It's like irreducibility. Like I see Timothée Chalamet's outfit, like camo cargo shorts, a weird sequined cardigan, and a New Order shirt or something, and it's like it is maximal incoherence. That sort of is what is appreciated the most right now, and that is unique.
We were trying to, we're writing something for interview, and we were trying to describe what the fashion is, and we're like, is it glam goth? Like, not really. But then Julian's like, it's
abnormcore.
Abnormcore.
maybe that gets at that kind of incoherence, because the looks were great and they were really cute last night. There's definitely just like a blending of like all
I mean, I always just think like blender,
Yeah,
like fashion tropes in a blender.
Just fully
Yeah.
blender.
Well, it's always like, actually you need to put on sneakers with that. Like even if it's like a fancy outfit, you just put on sneakers. Like,
Totally.
you need to make something wrong about
Hiking
it. Like
boots.
something of
Yeah.
your outfit needs to be off now.
Yeah.
So whatever, it's too coherent.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So there's like a desire, if it's like a mass desire for a subculture, or for some kind of like way of like muddying the codes, which is like in part what subculture was always.
I mean,
about.
you see like Elon Musk's use of like image board culture, and I've heard it described as like being a white man's jive. And I do see that there is an emphasis on in-group language, and you see that in crypto too, where like whether or not you hyphenate on chain or not becomes it indicates a lot about how much of a grifter you are. Like, and I think in situations where there's going to be a lot of grifters and people who are attracted to the community for whatever reasons, there's going to be an increased emphasis on signifiers like correct hyphenations and stuff like that. Or if you use the word blockchain still, there's a lot of these different things that just sort of show how much of an insider or not. And I think, that's more important than ever because it's harder to ascertain otherwise.
That's really interesting, Dan. And that actually relates to something we were speaking with the political scientist Kevin Munger last week. And he said that, in a time of language prediction and language generation, that using language in slightly wrong or highly specific ways ends up being the way to show humanity or your in-group status, or to show you're not a grifter. And that maybe because we are communicating so much via text, that it's not as much about visual signifiers as it is about syntax.
I mean, I was also thinking about how there's just an explosion of fraud right now. Like it's getting like
banking
wildly
fraud.
out of control. Yeah. And I was just thinking about, I mean, they're even doing behavioral prediction now, like having AI look for patterns in like bank users' ways they access their account to see if it like appears that they're logging in under pressure or duress or something. I mean, but I was just trying to think of like simple tests to see if the person on the other end of the line is like an actual bank employee or not. And I realized maybe one way is like, see if they get mad if you like start wasting their time a little bit or whatever. If they start to get angry, you know it's not a real employee, right?
A real employee will hang up on you and block your account, as I experienced last week with Citibank.
But they won't get angry because the boss is listening, right? So you see, I don't know if that's actually a good like OPSEC practice, but I was trying to think of these little ways of testing if the other person on the line is a real employee or not. And maybe though, that's an analogy for the way these now digital subcultures or whatever they are developing their own in-group language.
True.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that it's notable. Yeah, the posers that we have to worry about now are bots, actually.
Yeah,
totally.
And so there will be a lot of methods to determine if people are real or not. That's going to be a huge theme this decade. And, there's lots of different ways, like behavioral analysis, text analysis. There's attempts like WorldCoin to actually, like scan everybody's retinas and have a connection between some biometrics and the blockchain. And it's true, probably within the next couple of years, there's going to be more artificial agents creating content and chatting and, just creating stuff online. There are real people. And it's going to become more and more important too.
Because it's a definable category that can also be marketed to at least teenagers or, Yeah. I mean, I'm curious then to bring it back to dis for a second. How has dis evaded recuperation all these years?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've always skirted that. I mean, we've really been in parallel with, the art world, with technology, with fashion, with even entertainment or this or that. So maybe it's because, what we choose to talk about is never quite decipherable enough to be we can make money off of video.
Right,
you know what I mean?
right.
It's just well.
Yeah. I was wondering about that just because there are so many different distribution methods that you guys have explored over the years. And I know you did at one point have a Hollywood agent and were trying to pursue, the traditional Hollywood route. Mm-hmm. But yeah, obviously that would require a lot of compromises. And then I also see, this is David and Solomon, not you personally, but Torso. And there seems to be a lot of product market fit for Torso within fashion.
For sure.
It's the right level of incoherence for fashion.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering how much you think about the venue and if you still have goals to try to do something fully mainstream or if you're kind of happy to have the freedom to not be.
No, I think 100%. I mean, in the same way that it's hard to sell a collective to an art collector or even to a biennial or to a whoever. It's hard to sell a collective. It's hard to sell to a commercial client, which is, I mean, David and Solomon doing Torso, it's so amazing. It makes sense. A duo, we get the duo.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It really, really works. And it's really amazing. But a collective wasn't gonna people are who am I gonna talk to? I don't understand. Blah, blah, blah. So it's going to be a challenge, but we absolutely do maintain a goal of we want Everything But the World to be a series. We want to write the season. We want to get that on HBO
Amazing.
or Apple or wherever.
Yeah.
We want to have a mass audience. We're not in it for the niche status. That's not actually the end goal. So, everyone pray and manifest with us. that does happen, but it will be an interesting challenge once again to pitch this community of creators to make a TV show,
You would think that would be more palatable these days than ever. And, in the days of people trying to adapt Twitter threads into, movies and stuff like that, that people would be open to that. But I guess authorship is still an easier bet. It's the same thing even with the startup world. A strong founder or a team of 2 is easy. A team of 4 or 5, that becomes more muddy.
Yeah.
So
Can you tell us a little bit about if Everything But the World becomes a TV show? What's your pitch for it? So we've now seen the film at Schinkel, which is the pilot. What would we expect if we were to see it in a series format? And maybe also just for people listening who haven't seen it. It's a docu-sci-fi series, which I love. Or that's what
That's how we
described.
called it. That's what we called it.
Yeah.
So we made this film and it was all about kind of collapsing time and space and knowledge and attack on notions of progress and property. And we had this theme. It was the castle that kind of ran throughout it as the kind of, indicator of what it is to be human. And all these questions came up. But the through line was this podcaster, a surprise, who is essentially just trying to wrestle with all of these ideas in our head. And it's a really cool work because at the end, I really identify with her.
Yeah, and this is played by Layla.
This is played by Leela Weinrob, yes. really identify with this character because at the end she's like, why are you mad? Why are you mad? And you're like, yeah, why? Don't understand this world that we live in. You know, like there's this like climax of frustration in both having access to so much information, but being so consumed and confused and like, and also knowing that like these stories that are told and retold and told again aren't reality. And what we perceive as being real, it's like, you know, I don't know why we point fingers and laugh at QAnon people. Do you know what I mean? It's like, well, here we are like believing in like all this speculative garbage on like finance, whatever, you know, these are all fictions. It's just a matter of like how many people are going to collaborate in them and believe them. So that's like the art film. But the TV pitch is going to be like a bit more Seinfeld, Frasier, George Carlin. Like, you know, like where like Leela has a life, a character. Her real life seeps into the podcast. So in that way, like we are really like pivoting and trying to make it more mainstream, you know?
I mean, I imagine that more episodes that follow the same format of Everything But the World would be really entertaining regardless to a mainstream audience, except there's no way to market something like that. Like, how do you describe it? There's not an existing category or trope. You're asking people to kind of dive into something unknown, which is why I think you always need some kind of genre or narrative vehicle to wrap the deep thinking, I guess. Because everything that's made is like, you pitch it as like X meets Y, you know? And maybe if you're lucky, say with a twist of Z, you know? But
what if it's like Adam Curtis meets Seinfeld? Like
that's pretty.
It's like
that's pretty good.
It's like that's how I'm seeing it. Like it's a dark comedy.
Yeah.
I feel like we have just done the greatest market testing. We were, you know, shown in LA, we did it in New York, you know, we sold out, whatever, you know, like there's an audience. There's an audience for this. These subjects are things that people are thinking about. They're like literally staying up at night, like thinking about this stuff.
One of the things I appreciate about Everything But the World is that it doesn't talk down to the viewer. It sort of uses, just as Dis always has, it uses the general vernacular. I mean, also not to make it seem like it's for kids, but like Sesame Street did this back in the 70s, where it like sort of knew.
I got a Sesame Street vibe from it for sure.
It's just meets people where they are, which I think is effective.
Well, I think one change since 2023 is officially the start of the 20s. I think we are going to start to see a refocusing on scale appropriate issues that humanity is facing. We are in this social media driven holographic period where not only time was warped, but our sense of scale was totally flattened. And I've been seeing sort of a fuzzy macro trend emerge that's on a level above the culture war and above most of the political divisions, that's about animating the problems that we face on a civilizational or species level scale. And I think this does that extremely effectively. I wonder if you feel like this fits into the thinking Dis has always had, or do you feel like this film plants a flag in some new territory you're going to explore?
I think it plants a flag. I think we're older now. It's a different world.
Yeah.
You know, if I thought it was like really like the same, I don't know if I'd be doing it. I will say this. All of the things that we're talking about in it, I feel like we have been talking about for a long, long time. But our approach is a little bit refined.
Right. I mean, you said something interesting at the opening, because I think I asked you, I'm like, what feels different between 2016 and 2023? And you were like, well, theoretically, we're exploring a lot of the same concepts. We're using a lot of the same language. But the environment has changed. And because of this collapse of time and this collapse of media, there's kind of no way to easily depict it or in 20 years to explain to somebody. Maybe it will become clearer in hindsight, but at this moment, how do you show the difference between 2016 and 2023?
Yeah.
Like,
it's like a soup or something. It's like the broth is different, but all the ingredients are the same.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, same stuff inside.
Yeah.
That term that I'm obsessed with, derangement of scale. And I'm like, yes, that's what it is. This gap between like you as an individual and like the world and like your influence and impact and non-impact.
We can't comprehend it.
We can't.
Yeah.
You know?
But yeah, just this idea of scale. Like, we're not adapted. We're all suffering from this.
Humans like literally do not understand large numbers.
No.
Yeah.
Like, we just don't get them. Like, after 1,000, it's over.
Yeah.
We're like, what? Like,
It's true.
You know?
It's true.
And emotionally, we can't calibrate to them either.
No.
'Cause
Right.
there's a very
can't
narrow
feel-
range of emotional response.
Here, one person dies, it's very sad. 2 people dies, you're like, that's very sad. 200 people dies, you can't be 100 times more sad. It doesn't work that way.
Biologically, evolutionary, like,
We don't have the
haven't-
skills
no,
for
not
that.
at
They don't
all.
have the capacity
But I mean,
for
in
it.
so many ways, we are not evolved to be in the position we're in the world.
Yeah.
That's also true.
And it's like, okay, like, so sharks are older than trees. And,
Wait,
you
is
know,
that true?
Yeah, and older than dinosaurs. And
Flowers.
like
Wow.
the T-Rex, like the difference between us and the last T-Rex and T-Rex and the last Stegosaurus is like, the difference between T-Rex and Stegosaurus is larger than us and the last T-Rex. So like, we are really young, and like, we really just jumped the food chain in this way that's like,
Cleopatra is closer to the moon landing than the construction of the pyramids. I mean, it works on all sorts of.
it works on all sorts of ways
Scales.
where it's topsy-turvy, man. Like, how
Yeah.
did this happen?
Everything
You know,
feels
like-
unreal. Yeah.
Carly said something that blew me away the other day. And I was just talking about, I don't know, the delusion of metaverse or something. Like, I can't believe how these like massive things that you know are absolutely untrue or will never become the norm or something.
Or the
that
aggregation of capital in the
there's
crypto
this-
markets or something.
Like, people basically lie to themselves without knowing it just due to crowd dynamics, right? And I was talking to Carly about these kinds of mass hypnosis that occurs without really even being directed by a single entity. And I was like, how can this be happening? And how do people not realize this happens? And Carly says, well, just think of how much we delude ourselves to just be able to live normal life. Like the threats that we're facing, the state of the world, like the nuclear bombs that are just sitting there in silos, like protected by a computer from the 80s. Like, right? The amount of things we have to delude ourselves just to function in our mundane lives. Like, of course, it's very easy to just like believe whatever hype.
Right. We're just primed to accept some of these myths just in order to function.
I think it's maybe an exercise to be aware of these bigger scale truths, you know?
Julian's
Maybe
going to
it's
start
like a
raising
habit.
chickens, slaughter our own
That's
poultry.
not my
and-
idea. My creative producer to Rural Pipeline idea was that we would raise organic, healthy, and happy pigs without immune systems to grow human organs inside of for
That's your
transplants.
Cronenberg fantasy.
No, that's a real future, and I think we could be innovators in that field.
Okay. I mean, one question I have for you, Lauren, is you're also a mother of 2 kids who, you know, they have the capacity to start to think about some of these big things. Are there any frameworks that you and Marco have found to be particularly helpful? And do your kids even have questions about these things?
I'm definitely of the radical honesty parenting style, but they haven't asked me questions about new media, no. I mean, for them, they're just like, they want to watch YouTube. They talk about TikTok.
How do you deal with digital media?
Everyone wants to hear about my family's
you don't have to say
screen
or-
time.
But I am curious. I think there are a lot of parents also in our Discord of like kids who have this question, and who better to ask than, you know, like the mother of dis.
Listen, they're not deprived. They play video games on the weekends. They don't have their own iPads. They don't have phones. They can't scroll or search. They don't have those tools. A lot of their friends, like, they have friends with phones, and some people have like unlimited screen time as a philosophy because they think like, hey, like this is the world we live in. They see me on the phone. Like, why not them? I'm like, no, like, you can be bored. I'm very happy with you being bored right now.
Yeah, I heard this anecdote recently about somebody who had hired some Zoomer software engineers, and they didn't understand how file systems work. The files go into folders, or because everything was just app based. So I do wonder if it's important to expose certain types of screens. Like, the fact that screen time has become just a term for any type of screen use is dangerous, because there's definitely productive uses of screens and lazy uses. So I don't know.
Marco is amazing. He downloaded software that they can like replicate like any game.
Oh, wow.
So like they play like all
emulator,
these
yeah.
games from the 80s and the 90s.
cool.
Like, that's like, it's like Street Fighter and Donkey Kong and like, but not so much Roblox, because those things are like,
I do think that you get less dopamine overload from like a
100%.
16-bit game, probably.
There's just something in we all know this. I mean, the design of these games is just like everything else. It's meant to be addictive. They get just as much satisfaction playing, you know, Pokemon
Yeah.
than They don't need that.
When are they going to watch Kids?
They have to discover that themselves. That is the lamest thing ever. Your mom's like, come on, let's watch Kids. Like,
Oh, God. That would be a very uncomfortable family viewing.
Here's how to be a teenager in New York.
Oh my gosh. I don't know, Dan, if you had any other bigger questions?
Not big ones, no.
We can quickly acknowledge how funny post-net art was called post-net, as if it was after something.
No,
that
it just meant that it was after
in the
like
wake
the onset of
wake
the internet.
But it is funny because like whatever art that emerged in the 2016 till 2021 moment was actually post-internet and kind of pretending that the internet stopped existing. So that did become the theme, I think, after post-internet.
Dan, do you remember when there was this kind of like moment where we didn't know if it was going to be called post-internet or the new aesthetic?
Yes.
And
the new aesthetic, I guess, did that catch on?
Do you remember that? It didn't catch on. I felt like it was coming from London. Am I wrong?
That ended up being more just like pixelated architecture, I guess. I still hear called the new aesthetic, but pretty distinct from whatever the post-internet. Yeah.
It didn't
catch on.
No.
Yeah.
Lauren, are there any Zoomers who you see as some kind of spiritual successor to the DIS project?
I'm sure there are. Putting me on the spot, but I do think that like the do not research thing is like, so like if we were younger, if we started now, like that's kind of what we would have probably been doing, like that kind of collaborative, like you know, group think. But I know Josh isn't a Zoomer, but I think there are many of them are Zoomers.
Exactly,
and I think
definitely. It has the same kind of spirit. We're not about individual subjectivity. And it seems like there's Blade Study, the gallery that is run by the person who coded that site.
And of course, there's like the Ramelia and like edgelordy Zoomers who are, I don't know, going on a blitz through ideology and tradition and the future all at once. And I don't know where it'll settle. It's like a big machine that's kind of crunching everything. And I think eventually it might land on something cohesive, but we're not there yet. I think they're still like
that's
overclocking
fine.
at
Just
the
that's
moment.
fine.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to settle. I wonder, when you think back about all the million things that you've produced, are there any DIS projects or DIS magazine articles that you're like, oh, I think about this all the time? Because like, I think of shoes and shoes all the time. I was
going to bring it up.
Yeah, every time I put on my Crocs, I'm like, shoes and shoes.
Bring that up. Yeah.
I'm like literally working on the shoes and shoes project right now.
No, yes.
Yeah, I'll show you some later. Yeah. Yeah, that definitely. I mean, that's like super iconic, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it had like the best reactions from people too. It's like Martha Roso was like, some people.
I remember that too.
Remember that?
Yeah.
Some people make revolutions and some people wear 4 shoes at once. You know? It's just like really the queen of Facebook has spoken.
No, I mean, I really think that had the most impact on visual culture of any photo essay that I can think of. I mean,
the
that's
uncanny.
what sneakers look like.
Yeah.
For sure.
I think How to Hide from Machines comes up a lot.
Can you tell people what that is?
It was a visual essay with Adam Harvey, a technologist who was studying surveillance and facial recognition and how everything is going to be equipped with like a detection now, which it is. And this was 2011 or something. So, and he was like, oh, but if you wear makeup that looks like this, and it's like this, like the opposite of contouring. You put like black streaks on your
World
cheek.
War I
like,
dazzle.
Yeah, it's like totally funny. So we did like a photo shoot where we're like using hair to cover people's faces.
Yeah.
It was like a beauty editorial, but then like mixed with all this Tumblr imagery. And I think about that one a lot.
I've seen that referenced or replicated many times. I mean, it also is funny because that method does not work anymore.
No.
Which is, whereas shoes and shoes still works.
Yeah.
There's something timeless about that. But with like 3D cameras, the dazzle makeup doesn't work anymore. So
I wonder if shoes and shoes though changes your gait enough where gait recognition
exactly. There you go.
track you.
I also think about like Ryan Turcarton. He did this like an editorial for W Magazine, which was like amazing. He had like Veronica and Telfar and Ashland and Lizzie Fitch, and he like styled them and made the craziest editorial, the best editorial I've ever seen. And then we published the references behind it and like how it all came together. Yeah, that was one of my favorites because I feel like that really defined like how we were all looking at combining images and creating new genres. And that was like very pivotal.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I do like how the editorial in DIS magazine, it was polished and like high production value.
Why does anyone say that? Like, I never understand. Like, take a closer look, people.
Well,
like,
they're constantly showing the seams or the structures behind things. Or just like with the Biennale, you saw how any of these media events are made. I mean, I feel like dis set out to challenge the entrenched forms of institutional critique. And it did that by like showing, okay, but these are the new frames and we're revealing them to you. I think it looks high production, but maybe I don't have a very trained eye.
It does. The W magazine spread is, I mean, I remember all of those images. Absolutely. I guess there was an interview around the time of BB9 where you mentioned that you were really thinking about the end of the contemporary, and it's true.
But that term in the aughts also stood in for like a certain aesthetic. Like contemporary didn't just mean the now. It was like contemporary art meant it was attached to a particular kind of discourse in a particular generation. And then it got stale. And it had to be retired.
we had to use glossy paper for our catalog.
Yes.
Super important.
Well, do we have more questions? Or should
What do you think about AI?
Excited to work for it. You know, like, I hope they're a good boss.
Oh, I remember one more question. Someone mentioned this as being kind of an alternate institution. And of course, we've talked about this, and Joshua Citarella has talked about this, like para-institution or pseudo-institution. And I wonder if there was ever an opportunity for dis to be actually formalized into the thing we commonly consider an institution. I mean, I don't know how that actually like happens. I guess it just means like a lot of money, but was that ever proposed in any way? And you said no. I mean,
no, not that I can recall. I mean, not like, hey, like you guys should be like, yeah, here's this money and I just want to give it to you. That's never been blessed.
Make an institution?
No. You know, the thing is, it's like we kind of did pivot in the way where we're like, all right, well, like since they're going to talk about this in art schools, like why don't we just like create a platform and like have schools subscribe to it?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Dis.art.
Yeah, exactly. And continue to like make films and produce things about things we're interested in and sell it to like the universities and libraries and wherever. So in that sense, I think that's where we found like a happy medium, I guess, and like a compromise where it's like we have full independence, but there is institutional support for what we do.
Right. And then does that also mean that dis's work will be archived somehow? Or like how will that work?
Well, I actually really worry about Dis Magazine.
Yeah.
We need someone to help us. Like bring, like, yeah, I'm looking for someone that really knows WordPress, like, but it's really on us because it's like we have like 1,000 hard drives and it's old. I mean, these things don't last forever. People think about like everything is lasting forever on the internet, but it falls apart. And it's like without real caretaking and maintenance, like everything you make is like destined to disappear.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I would love to like see someone help us, but it's on us because it's like we've got hard drives distributed between like, 4 different people, maybe more, maybe 5, 6. Like, I don't know.
Right. I remember you doing a piece on data obesity sometime around 2014 or something. And that term has stuck with me. And I was haunted on one hand by the bajillion photos I have in my archive, knowing that I'll never go through all those.
Yeah.
And that's just a personal situation. But like 3 years is about the shelf life of like any digital piece. I mean, maybe even less before you start to get some kind of digital rot. So yeah, help Dis if you're listening. You know how to reach them. Well,
that was my last question.
Cool. So Everything But the World, it's in Berlin now at Schinkel Pavillon. It's up for the next month or so. We'll put the dates in the show notes. Is there anything else that's coming up in the coming months, or are there other places where people can view the film?
I think it's going to go to Malta soon.
So if you live in Malta.
I don't know. No, it's moving around. I mean, I think Hong Kong. During Art Basel, maybe.
Cool.
Hong Kong. I think it's going to be seen in London in March, too.
Where?
I think we're going to get a theater.
Great.
Yeah, we're going to do a theater for that one.
Great. Well, Lauren Boyle, thank you so much for sharing all this lore and all these new thoughts with us. Really such a pleasure to have you here, and we hope you enjoy the rest of your time in Deutschland.
Thank you, Carly. Thank you, Julian. Dan, it's so good to see you guys.
All right. Ciao.
Thank you for listening to the New Models podcast, and thank you, Lauren Boyle, for joining us on this episode. Dis's film installation, Everything But the World, is on view at the Schinkel Pavillon in Berlin through February 26th. You can follow at dis on Instagram and/or head to our show notes for all relevant links. Is there a dis work stuck in your mind? Did the dis sphere influence your practice in a significant way? Let us know in the comments or share with the community in the podcast channel of our Discord. If you enjoyed this conversation and want to hear more from the front lines of the post-digital turn, boost us in the algos, like, share, rate, subscribe, and or leave a review wherever you access the New Models stream. Thank you, and see you next episode.
This has been a New Models production. Music and mixing by Lil Internet. Intro clip from Everything But the Girl, Blame, J Magic VIP Remix. For more, visit patreon.com/newmodels or newmodels.substack.com.